Greetings, Terrarians, Khaios here. Today I'm going to be building a boss-themed house for the Empress of Light. Now, I am currently in my old boss-themed house world, as you can see here, but I have used the newly updated T-Edit to turn this into a journey mode world. So we have all of the old builds, but we're currently in 1.4, as you could tell by the blending of the dynasty wood and the stone slab and other blending things that make some of these builds look weird. Now, I don't plan on going through and updating everything. Technically speaking, I could come through here and possibly do like echo blocks on top of this ash, like I did right there, so that you can't get any of the plants growing from on top of that, but I'm not really going to be too bothered about any of that or updating any of the blended textures too much. Like over here, it's kind of all blended together now rather than having some accent lines. I could fix all of that, but I'd rather not do that and would rather focus on something new. Additionally, I used T-Edit to port over my Queen Slime boss-themed house, which I have done a video on probably about 3 weeks ago. So if you haven't seen that video yet and you're curious how I built this castle right over here, I will leave a link to that video in the description below. But today we're going to be doing something completely new and finishing up the last main boss. I still haven't done event bosses and I'm not sure if I'm going to. Leave a comment if you'd like to see event boss themed houses. But for today we're going to be doing the Empress of Light. So the Empress of Light is a gigantic fairy, and 1.4 has shown us that fairies in Terraria can spawn from fallen logs. Now that got me thinking that it might be interesting to make the house for the Empress of Light inside of a tree. But since this is a Hallow fairy, and Hallow is associated with crystals, as we could see in this background here, and the crystals growing underground and whatnot, I thought it might be interesting to make this a crystalline tree if I can pull that off. I've never made a crystal tree before, but I'm going to try that today. In addition, I want this to be a crystal tree house. So that's what I'm going to be working on here. Since this tree is in the Hallow, I wanted it to be lighter in color than trees usually are. Unfortunately, there isn't a living pearlwood wand or anything like that, so instead I'm going to be using living mahogany with white paint. While I build the trunk of this tree, I thought I'd give you some pointers for trees of your own. Keep the size and shape in mind from the very beginning. I recommend using a tree only as big as the screen can see when fully zoomed out. Larger trees are certainly possible, but it's really hard to appreciate the entire tree when you can't see it all at once outside of the map. Also, have the general shape in mind when you start building. If you know you're going to be building a tree house in the branches, curving them out to the side to give a flat area to work with really helps. Tree houses are usually built around a tree's shape and not cut directly into it, so by building a tree in a way that makes sense to support a house will greatly help you out. The length and thickness of the branches will vary on the size of the tree and the house going on top. Unfortunately, I can't really give you an easy answer as to how to do it. It's something that you have to get a feel for as you build more trees. The only tip that I can give is to not make them too thin so that they look strong enough that they can hold the leaves and the house. The last bit of advice that I can give you when starting your tree build is this. Forget symmetry, just throw the idea of it out the window. Don't worry if one side of your tree is larger than the other. It's perfectly okay if the tree leans to one side. Pure symmetry is very rare in nature and it does not exist in trees without human alterations. So little imperfections can actually help make your tree look perfect. So the bare bones of the tree is done, and I even added some brown painted mud in between the living mahogany wood and the dirt so that they can blend together, since the mahogany didn't blend with the dirt to begin with. Though it does look like the ground is saturated in this area, I think it's okay and I like the way that it looks in general. Additionally, up here, I placed a platform to build the foundation. Originally, I was going to build a tower on top of this tree, but the way that the tree is shaped here just the way that it came out naturally, I hadn't planned it like this. It kind of looks round here. And the reason this branch went this way and that branch went that way was because I wanted to hold a tower right here. And I put some branches coming out this way and that way just to make it feel a little bit more full. It would have looked odd if this entire segment here had been missing. But now that this is here, I'm kind of feeling like this tree should be holding a colorful crystal ball in the middle, and that would be the house instead. So I'm gonna try that out. I don't know how it's gonna look. It might not look good at all, and I might go back to the tower idea. But for now, I kind of want to see what this will look like, and I think the center of it will be right about there. I don't have enough space here for a perfect circle. I guess I would if I did a small one, but I'd probably want to make this at least 17 by 17 so that it's a fairly decent sized circle. So I might need to shape these branches a little bit more, but this does give me the idea and I do want to try it out. Alright, so I've got the crystal ball here. Originally I was going to do glass, but then I thought, why not use some of the new starry block? And I experimented a lot. As you can see here, I have a lot of my paints drained. I tried a bunch of different color combinations. I tried some swirl patterns, but the thing is, this doesn't really glow. It's dark in here. It's completely dark in here, except when you paint it with the luminant paint. Now you'll see if I just get rid of some of the paint right in here and I get myself out of there because I'm producing light, you can see how dark it actually is inside of that crystal ball. So I decided illuminant paint would be the best choice. I would love to have the ability to paint with illuminant paint and have color in here as well, but that's not an option right now since it's actually a paint, it's actually a color, it's not just a block effect, though it would be amazing if it could just be a block effect. Also, I placed a little bit of echo block in there, and the reason for that is I want to make this a valid NPC house, but kind of make it look like everything's just floating around. I'm going to grab some more illuminant paint. I'm going to place the Hallow Pylon in here. Now the thing about this is, it's going to glow as well. Well, not produce light and glow in that sense, but it's not going to be dark. Whereas if I were to get rid of the paint, it's going to be quite a bit darker in there. And the idea for this valid NPC house is to have things just floating in here that make it a valid house. So I'm going to grab some crystal furniture, I think, and echo blocks. So let me just put some in random locations. Like I'll put a chair. I don't need the illuminant paint for this. I'll put a chair like there, maybe a workbench up here. Like that. Okay, so now we have a bunch of random crystals and furniture floating around the room, and I might actually need to paint these illuminant. I forgot to turn my paint sprayer back on, but let me just go ahead and take the Spectre goggles off, and I'm going to go ahead and paint everything as well, just so it's brightened up in here. I don't want these to be left in shadow whatsoever. So now it looks like we have floating bits of furniture around this void area, and this should be a valid NPC house minus a door, if I recall correctly. Yeah, it's missing a door. So in order to get the door, I think all I'm gonna do is grab some shadow paint and a shelf, a brass shelf, because that's a really thin piece of furniture. And let me just put on some shadow paint. I'll probably hide it over here in the corner and just hammer it into some stairs. It's hardly noticeable at all. And that should make this a valid NPC house because platforms do count as doors. So there we go. This house is now suitable. And I think it works. It's chaotic, it's a nice void area, and I think it fits the feel of this build, especially with how chaotic the Empress of Light is. So up next, I'm going to be working on actually making this a crystalline tree. I'm probably not going to time-lapse it because I've never done anything quite like this before, and I'm not sure how many hours it's going to take me to get it looking right. So I'm just wrapping up the tree. I'm doing some small detail work around it. The tree's crystal leaves are mostly made out of nebula fragment that's been unpainted, but it was a little too bright and a little too much of one color. So right now what I'm doing is I'm using some purple paint with some vortex fragment, and I'm just spacing out some of these leaves, adding a little bit more texture to them so it's not all one solid blob massive color. In addition to that, I have some illuminated painted crystal block over here so that they'll glow in the dark. And I have gems placed around the area. I have the little crystal shards placed around the area as well. And I even blended some white painted pearl stone in with the tree trunk as well to give it the sparkly texture and to allow me to plant some gem corns on top of the tree in various different locations. And the hanging fruit, quote unquote, is just crystal lamps. So I'm going to wrap up this little segment of blending in the, I guess, quote unquote leaves. They're not actually leaves, they're crystalline. But after that, there's a couple of other details that I want to do to the environment, including adding some leaves to the floor because every build is better with bushes, right? And maybe a little bit of fog, and I'll explain why I want to do the fog in the next scene. So let me just wrap up this blending over here, and then we'll get a look at the environmental changes. Alright, so the tree is completely done now, and I'm very happy with it. I spent even more time on it. All in all, I probably spent roughly about 10 hours working on this tree because it's something that I've never done before. So whenever I experiment with something new, it always takes a very long time, and that's definitely the longest I've ever spent on a tree. Now for the environmental stuff, I mentioned that I wanted to have some fog here, so I'm going to grab some shadow paint. I'm going to grab 2 fog machines and just place one right here and one on the other side. Now, in addition to that, I'm going to grab 2 demon torches and also with shadow paint, place them next to the fog machines. Now, it doesn't look like much right now, but if I zoom out, and let me just put myself inside of the tree house, and let's switch it to nighttime here, you'll see that the Eye of Cthulhu awakens. That's not what I wanted to show you, I promise. Go away, Eye. Go. Get out of here. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. So you'll see that the fog is actually affected by the light of the torch. And I picked the demon torch because it cycles through a reddish to a purplish color, which complements this tree nicely. And as you can see, between the illuminate paint, all of the light sources we have in this tree, and all of the crystals shining, it really comes together at night. And I wanted to do this very much from the beginning of the build. Everything around this tree I had in mind at nighttime because this boss is a nighttime boss. And I thought it would be nice to make this build a nighttime themed build as well. And that's going to wrap it up for this, I guess, void house, tree house for the Empress of Light. I hope you all enjoyed this build. If you did, be sure to leave a like and a comment. It really helps me out. And please consider subscribing. Oh, wait, I'm not quite done yet. I almost forgot the most important part. I need to put the Empress of Light's head right over here onto this mannequin. And let's just throw this on before I do my outro because there, now we're complete. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll catch you all later. Happy building.